Right, start recording and turn on the screen share.
Yeah, I can see.
Alright, so before we jump into this game, I want to look at your runes. Legend Alacrity, Coup de Grace, Zombie Ward, Relentless Hunter, Electrocute. Okay. When you compare these side by side with, I generally compare it with the most popular runes. The mistake that I think you're making here is that you don't need Legend Alacrity. Triumph is incredibly good on divers who need to be aggressive and pick up kills. Like generally, you want to start a team fight with a kill, right? That's like your ideal situation. Triumph is good on those kind of champions, and Vi is an AD attack speed bruiser. And with the recent patch where they split these so that you can get both, it's not just with the resolve tree. I think Domination Precision is definitely what you should be running like 90% of the time now. Um, but I do think Alacrity is redundant. I think you need Triumph for the spiciness, for diving and getting that first kill and surviving the team fight.
Yeah, of course.
Because you become dependent on like multiple Triumph procs to keep you alive in some cases on these diving bruisers.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I have noticed that. The only reason I changed it recently was because there's on the Korean Vi mains, guys
They're
just popped
using
up
that.
with like 400 games played on Vi in Diamond 2 with Alacrity. So I wanted to try it out, but
I think it has value, because like you can definitely beat people up with Vi. But I think when you're getting fed, getting items like Trinity Force and Warrior and Deadman's and just one-shotting people, I think carrying team fights is going to happen more with Triumph. For someone who's like a Korean high-level player in Diamond, I feel like there's less kills early game, right? So he runs Zombie Ward and Alacrity so that he can kind of scale up and play safe for his better laners. I think you need to be more selfish. I don't think you're going to need this because you're going to be playing aggressive from the get-go, not trying to farm up first. And I think you need to be taking eyeball collection instead of zombie ward. Since you're still in like silverish gold elo, there's still probably not enough wards to warrant taking zombie ward.
okay.
I think you should be focusing on trying to get more fed and just like bursting and carrying fights with eyeball collection and triumph.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah.
Um, I do think your Swifties this game were probably a mistake. Looking at the enemy team comp, they have a ton of damage,
Yeah.
a lot. I think you needed tank boots here. Um, what else? Right. The other big thing that I like to look at before I go into games that I like to compare your experience in gold graphs with the counterpart on the enemy team. So for most of this game, you pretty much outperform the Maokai, which is great in terms of gold. But when we look at XP, XP tends to tell a different story compared to like when certain things happen in the game.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
like right here, I see your graph go up big time though. Like this is probably a really good play for you, right?
Yeah.
Like you make something really awesome happen in 26 minutes. A lot of times with people that have losing games, you'll see something like this, but it'll be their graph. So in this respect, I think over the course of the game, you probably fell behind overall because of your team, because it doesn't look like you have any particular point where you mess up too bad. Um, that's kind of what this graph tells me. But at the same time, you still have 7 deaths, which is too many,
Yeah.
right?
Way too many. Yeah. And it
I
seems
think
pretty
you.
consistent.
What I also see is that you have 11 control wards bought. That's
Yeah.
over 800 gold. I think that is a definite overstep. You got to draw the line somewhere.
Okay.
All right, but we're gonna get into the review. Oh, am I even recording the right window? Okay, yes, I am. Sweet. That would have been bad. All right. You start machete. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yours watching. They're watching blue. You start W. Okay, sweet. All right. Now you started read this game because I feel like you see the two like immobile squishy bot laners, right? And that's you want to
Yes.
gank them first rather than trying to gank this guy first, which he's likely to be high on health. He has the better matchup because he has ignite and he's just Vladimir. So I feel like setting up to try to level 3 gank him is much more risky, definitely than like the squishy bot lane. So I think your start is definitely correct in this case. Alright, and you took E2, so you're not worrying about a level 2 gank. I generally think you probably shouldn't. Getting level 3 is more important. Yeah, it's not worth it. Your clear here is mostly fine. This is kind of just going to be nitpicking. When you get this first punch here, that's fine. You want to punch auto and like start spreading this red buff, right? So you would punch, move, punch, move, punch, move, and stack all three as you move towards this direction. So you are already moving towards your next objective. But the even better part about stacking the red buff on all three of them is that by the time you get over here, you know, they'll all be burning. So you're doing maximum DPS and moving at the same time. But then when they all follow you in a line, then you get to punch them all out with your E-autos, right? You kind of miss the big one here, I think, with your second E-auto, actually. Oh no, you hit it. But the problem here is that like you don't spread the red buff first and you're not kiting. Like this just, it's a little suboptimal. So little movements like this where you want to spread red buff first as you kite towards the next camp would be a slight improvement in your clear. Like it might only be 2 seconds in this case, but sometimes that's the difference between a gank. You know what I mean? So always making sure you have an optimal clear is really important on junglers. It's kind of like getting all your CS in a lane. Can't be wasting seconds. It's worth seeing your vision here. You finish blue, and then I think you're already looking at the map, right? You see that bot lane is too deep under. It's probably not worth it when you could just go for a Ziggs, who is still level 2. He just hit level 3, but still, he's low on life, so this is the easy gank. I think it's good here. A lot of the times you see some people try to get too fancy with Vi, like, and they would throw their Q out here, like trying to predict the flash. You get patient, right? You're patient with it. You wait for him to make it easy. The other thing that Vi's make a problem with is that they just go for these max range punches when that's not necessary. So what you do in comparison, which is what makes like this a good gank. Because he's already overextended, I actually think you charge your Q even a little bit early here. Just a little bit. Because he's already so overextended, you have all the time in the world to get up behind this guy, right? I think when you make the decision to start charging your Q right here and slow yourself down, it's just a little preemptive. I think you can kind of afford to walk into the lane first and then start charging. Because this is actually kind of far.
Because he hit level 3 before my Xerath, I think I was concerned that he was going to take his W, try and W out, and then flash out, so I thought...
He actually didn't, which is funny. Like, he didn't take W at all. But this whole play is actually really important. Okay. You charge a Q just a little too early. In Universe B, where this Ziggs is a better player, because he has a level up on you, or a level up on your Xerath, he sees you coming from over here, and he is just automatically walking this way the moment he sees you. If that were to happen, when you start your Q this early, all of a sudden you can't catch him anymore. So that's why I say wait a little longer to throw your Q. Against better players, if they see you walk out of the bush like this and start slowing yourself down, they're going to immediately walk in the opposite direction and outrange you.
Yeah, that does make...
But because, you know, he kind of just walks right at you, you land an easy Q. So once you see this, I think you do not flash for this because you've already used your gap closer and he's just a little too far, right? You probably can get this last auto, but the reason why I say this isn't worth it is because let's say Xerath doesn't get it and it's up to you to get this. If you do chase him under tower here, you might die from tower shots, right? You only have enough HP left to take one. So in terms of flashing here, the value of flash, I feel you're underrating it when you choose to flash for a kill like this. The moment he flashes out here, you kind of already have gotten what you want. You still chase him a little bit because you get to make it, when you chase him, you force him to walk away from you, right? Which creates a more predictable skill shot for Xerath to land. So I don't think you have to flash after him necessarily in order to secure this kill.
Yeah, that does make sense. And without my
And now you don't have your flash again until like, you know, what, 7 minutes and 50 seconds.
Yeah.
In general, you need to be sitting on your flash rather than using it this early in the game to secure a kill. Because what I'm seeing is that this Ziggs still has teleport, and your Xerath has no mana. So in my mind, this Ziggs just comes back to lane, pushes Xerath back out, and both of them have no flash now, so it's kind of like nothing big really happens. Sure, you get Xerath the kill, but Xerath got this kill without you flashing. I think you gank this guy, and you're just already happy with the fact that he flashes away. Your job's kind of already done here. Because what that lets you do is that for the next 5 minutes, when you see him flash, you know that you can come back to this lane anytime in the next 5 minutes, and he cannot flash away from you.
Yes.
So in general, I think don't use your flash on an early play like that unless it's absolutely necessary.
Okay.
Just be happy that you already got his, because that leaves you in a superior position. Let me see if you already saw this guy top. Yeah, 100%. You do your camp first, which I think is correct, because you get level 4. And you put your jungle camp on cooldown, right? That way it's already respawning. So you get a level up. Is that your ward? Yeah.
Yes.
And then you see that Maokai's coming down. Yeah, this is good. You have an HP advantage, you have a level advantage, you know, no reason not to go in on this. See, now because you don't have flash, you can't really finish this kill, right?
Yeah.
Now, you don't necessarily have to, but I think there's going to be other situations where you see that saving your flash just gives you more options. From a different perspective, I want to see if this could have been done any better. This is that one gap closer thing we're talking about, right? I think you were sometimes charging your Q just a little too early. Now, if you were to wait any longer, it's possible that he just turns back around and heads up top, right? So you lose your opportunity. But I think in this case, you kind of know that he's walking down here to get Scuttle, right?
Yeah.
He's already kind of committed to just walking down the river. I think you let him get a little closer and see if you can't just walk up and start the fight with auto attacks to begin with. Because if you can initiate the fight with auto attacks, that means you're still going to have your Q to chase him when he runs away. And it's going to be easy to chase him because you still have red buff. Granted, your red buff is like running out of time, but you still got enough, right? I think instead of engaging this fight with Q, you wait to see if he just walks a little closer, and you can't just start the fight with auto attacks.
Yeah.
Because that leaves you with Q to chase him down.
Yeah, at this point I would have had it.
Mm-hmm.
Game over.
Then you decide to not be greedy, and you back with all of your gold. Love that decision making. The amount of times people stay too long on the map and get themselves killed is scary. Okay. So you opt for the very, very aggressive build right here, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, I just got a bunch of kills, kill their jungle, I should get some aggressive stuff. This build is good only if you basically get a kill with it before your next back. I think most of the time you should be focusing on building your Stalker's Blade first, or your Red Smite first, because that is better either if you're ganking or if you're jungling. The longswords, they still help you jungle, but they tend to only help you more so in ganks. Now, this is good, though. Like, I'm not going to rag on this build because it's good. This is super aggressive, and it's lots of stats, and you're going to beat up anybody who tries to fight you right now. So it is good. But I want to see what you do with it before I go any further.
No. I remember this. My awful death. Where I could.
You see this guy with no flash right here?
Yeah.
You take the really aggressive build, but then opt into something that's just a little more than you can chew. Your job as Vi is to pick on the people that are vulnerable and squishy, right? You buy these long swords, and you get your boots, but then you don't go and gank the squishy guy with no flash. You make the decision to take a really big risk And I think, needless to say, this does not pay off.
Yes.
So what you do instead of this, when you know you bought this really aggressive build, the specific thing that this is good at would be, you know, killing Ziggs. You have 100 AD already. This guy's only got, you know, 800 life and 30 armor. And no flash. It also becomes easier if you still have your flash, right? Because you used it unnecessarily. But specifically, the moment we're going to be looking for is when this guy becomes overextended and you decide to go somewhere else. I think committing to the scuttle here is a decent idea. But then you decide to walk down. But look how far this guy is.
Yeah.
To catch opportunities like this more often, one, you would already be remembering that he doesn't have flash, so this is a good place to come back to. Already in your mind, that's good. Even better because Maokai is behind, right? If he were to counter gank you, but you already got a good engage onto this Ziggs, it's very likely that Maokai just dies too. Because you're ahead, and you built this very aggressive build.
Yes, yeah, that does make sense.
So what you do instead is that when you walk out of your jungle here and you hit this, you're already looking at the lanes. The moment you hit the scuttle, I actually think choosing to engage on the scuttle here with Q is actually really bad. The cooldown on this is 12.6 seconds. You could have just walked up to this scuttle crab, right? What happens here, if you were to just walk up to the scuttle crab and just start autoing it while you're looking at the map, you would see that this guy's already overextended right here.
Of course, yeah.
So you would still have your Q up, and I think at this moment, rather than walking through the bush here, you just loop around real easy and just sneak up behind him. Because if you look at the map right now, there's no minions coming in. He's not going to see you before it's too late, right? He doesn't have boots. You do. You know, he's not level 6 yet, but you're strong enough to kill him. And basically, anytime you see a squishy mid laner with no flash past like this halfway midpoint, you want to get behind him, like with this gank route or this gank route. The reason why getting behind him is so important is because of that same reason we talked about, where like if he sees you coming from this direction and he's good, he kind of just walks this way, right? Where he might be walking into Maokai waiting. But when you loop around here, it becomes more easy for you guys to get like a pincer rather than like both of you chasing him this way. You get to come at him from both directions. And you can be further into the lane right here rather than right here. This is a lot further than this is, depending on the position. He sees you much sooner when you come out of the river versus when you come out of right here.
Yeah, because there'd be no minions lighting up that area.
Exactly.
Tower range. Okay.
So the way you would want to notice that, go back, go to blue side vision. You're doing the grunt. Okay. You need to fast forward just a smidge. And stop. So you would look here, and when you know that these minions are right here, that's where they are in his base too, right?
Yeah.
So you have like a 5 to 10 second window here to sneak around and not get seen. So generally in the habit of when you're in the river here, the closer you are to whichever lane, you need to be paying more attention to that lane, right? Because that is the one you're closest to and you can get there the soonest. So if you were to walk and do scuttle and scuttle crab happened to be down here, you would be looking at bot lane more closely because you're closer to bot. I think when you make the decision to walk up here and start doing the scuttle crab, your screen needs to be bouncing back and forth from you and this Ziggs. If you were checking more frequently, rather than focusing on killing the scuttle crab, I think you would realize that you had an easy gank opportunity here. As a jungler, you need to have this like punishing opportunist mentality where your kills are going to come from other people's mistakes. If you're not looking for other people's mistakes, like walking up this far, you know, look at this. It gets worse, right? At first he was just right here, but now he's just asking for it. But you're not really paying attention.
No, I was definitely focused on going bot lane.
Yeah, I think you tunnel vision here. You generally want to keep a look at where you are already closest to. You make the decision to just kill Scuttle and commit to this bot lane gank, whereas your vision needs to be focusing on, if I'm in the river, I'm looking for this guy to mess up because I can punish him.
Yeah.
So after this play, you have 385 gold. You finish Caulfields. We get back out onto the map. They take Dragon. I think your best play here is to just like take Wolves and then go clear topside. Yeah, you're kind of in auto farm mode right now because you know you can't be ganking when you're still level 4. But this is the price of making certain kind of mistakes like that. You know you have to catch back up first before you do anything crazy. Farming up. Still got to do Krugs and get 6, but you're probably waiting. Alright, and then you still have enough money to go back for like your blade and a pink ward. Yeah. Okay, which is exactly what you get. Awesome. Okay, so in a perfect world, you would have your warrior finished with maybe a second kill and no deaths, right? Mm-hmm. If you had made the decision to go mid instead. But now that you're back on the map, you know that you need to go gank something, right? Ziggs' flash has come back since the early usage at like 250. Like it's just now come back. So you know that if you gank him, you're gonna have to deal with this flash again. This is where you would have kept an eye in chat for people to say like, I got this guy's flash or something. I don't know how often that happens. But like here you got some, right?
Yes, yeah.
You want to look, you're looking for stuff like this when you're playing assassin jungles.
Okay.
So when you're walking at a base, you want to look at like who has flash and who doesn't. And you want to kind of path towards that side of the map.
Okay.
So in this case, Varus still doesn't. Like actually the only one who has flash on their team right now is Ziggs. So I think your best gank here is actually, what do you think your best gank would be in this scenario?
I think it's probably bot lane.
Okay, I agree. Yeah.
Not level 6 yet, so Varus doesn't CC. Have to land.
Right, you're doing your blue buff. Okay. Is this their word? Yeah, it is. Okay. I'm going to show you how this could have been different. I think you were focusing too hard on farming and not punishing mistakes. When you're playing an assassin, you need to be looking more at the enemy laners and looking for things that you can punish, rather than having this like macro farm focused style where you scale up. The reason why I think is because by having this macro farm focused style, once again, you're just diminishing, you are missing things that you can punish. I think even the choice to do your blue here, you miss a kill. I also think you probably should be getting out of the habit of engaging onto things with your Q. There's going to be situations where you like engage into the river with Q onto Scuttle Crab, and then you know someone's there, and you're just fucked because you don't have your Q for 12 seconds. So I would definitely get out of the habit of engaging onto camps with your Q.
Okay.
Because you don't really need that damage, right? You're kind of just queuing around. But your decision to do blue here, I think, costs you this kill on Brand. So even though this is warded, that kind of doesn't matter because there's a blast cone, right? And you're level 6-5 with Q, flash, and all that good stuff. This blast cone exists to kind of circumvent this ward. Sure, they see you, but it's only a second before you're coming out of the bush. It's not like you're just walking down river. So when you know that this blast cone is here, if you see people kind of pass this line, more or less, you should be looking for a kill. And I think you see that now, right? If you were walking down already, you could be here when this guy's getting this Braum passive stacked on him. You could be hopping over this wall right now, killing both of these guys, right?
Yes, I could. Mm-hmm. I didn't see it.
I think you just need to be more map aware before you even, because I feel like what you're thinking is that I'm going to do blue, I'm going to do scuttle, and then I'm going to gank. As soon as you make the decision to path bot side, you should already be looking here. Like, sure, you already clicked to blue buff, but your camera needs to be right here.
Okay.
That way, when you are, when you're coming down right here, so you click out of base, you click blue, boom, and then you just look bot. you just leave your camera here. Maybe you look mid a little bit, you know. We're going to go to what you can see. Maybe you're looking mid, but while you are walking there, you're looking bot. And then if you're looking bot, you see this. You see that they are past this invisible line, right?
Yeah.
So you should be thinking about ganking.
Okay.
The other thing to note is that you see that the minions meet right here. So they're kind of going to be up here for the next, 20-ish seconds or so. Wherever they're choosing to stop and farm, that kind of decides their positioning, right? So when you see that it's past this invisible line, and that you're level 6 and that you can take this blast cone over, you should already be looking at this gank. And it only gets better and better because they're already fighting, right? This is a very easy kill if you're here in time. But yeah, but you're farming.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta have that opportunist mindset.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense, especially on Vi.
I don't think see, a Q like this is good. This is how you should be using your Q in the jungle, to like speed you over from one wall to the next, right? The reason why like this one is good rather than the one where you queued at blue is because one, you're queuing at blue when you should be going towards bottom. Same thing where you kind of like you queued at scuttle when you should have been looking for the flank mid. But the reason why this one is good is because you're just gonna farm wolves, right? You're not potentially close to a gank. You want to farm wolves and then just go this way. So what this Q accomplishes, I mean, you start the whole camp and then you're already pathed towards the other end, right? This goes back towards like you punch auto, punch auto, punch auto, and you move to this side to spread your red buff. This is kind of like that same efficiency where you already hit all the damage and you're already on the way to your next target. This is where like big efficiency comes into play. So I like this Q. I don't like when you're queuing into camps like this and this.
Okay.
Instead of looking at the map. Nice. You get the punish and then you get to shove them in. You get the farm. Not bad. I want to see if this could have happened a little sooner too, though. When it comes like the map awareness.
Mm-hmm.
You got vision in the river, which is nice. Xerath is just not playing that well. I think this is when you start moving. Yeah. Yeah, if you take any longer to move there, then you don't get this kill. But the reason why I'm not a big fan of this kill is because you have to use your flash to do it, right?
Yeah.
I think if you go bot, you don't have to use your flash for this kill bot. Just because they're so overextended. So you end up seeing that there's trouble, and you're like, oh shit, I gotta get there. But the only way you get there is with flash. With smarter pathing and seeing where people are going to be ahead of time, like when the wave is crashed here, or when it's crashed here, if you just get there more quickly, you're not going to need flash because you're late. You want to save flash for like in combat fancy outplays, ideally.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that does loss.
Alright, so you go back, and you... Okay, this is where you buy Swifties. That's not you. Okay. I see you buy the Swifties because you have just enough money for them, right? So it kind of makes sense in that regard. The reason why I don't like it is because, in my opinion, this team doesn't have enough slows. But what they do have is enough damage. Damage that you should be afraid of.
I said to myself at the start of the game, they're pretty much all AP, so I should definitely rush like Hexdrinker and stuff. But
yeah, so I think the Swifties here are not that great. Swifties do help you with map mobility and in-combat mobility, but when you're playing an all-in assassin who wants to either like win fights at the start or just have map presence, I think Swifties is kind of like that middle ground where you're kind of just half-assing it.
Okay.
You don't really need in-combat mobility. You would rather just, end the fight right when it starts. You know what I mean? So I think with this 600 gold, you get Mobies and just commit to the map presence. I think with Swifties, you kind of half-ass it. It's not the worst buy in the world, but they don't have Nasus with, I don't know, Zillion. They're more AP and stun heavy, not slow heavy. So I would say opt for Mobies instead of Swifties.
Okay. Yeah.
Especially when you know that you're going to be buying things like Trinity on Vi. So, like, you're already going to be getting some type of mobility. Swifties is more of like a Juggernaut thing, in my opinion. People who are more affected by slows, like Darius or Singed or someone. I think you need Mobies on a Jungle Assassin.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mobies tend to have insane scaling with Relentless Hunter as well. All that out of combat movement speed. You get to run in like over 500.
God, yeah, I didn't even consider that.
Mm-hmm. Which is why, like, Swifties aren't bad, right? I think there will actually be situations where buying Swifties is good. But in this case, I don't like it. I think you need Merc Treads. You just end up getting these because it's convenient. But I would generally opt for Mobies.
Okay.
Right, you have money. Yora's fighting a Vlad that's 2 levels over her and doing a decent job, I would say. Okay, and what are you trying to buy right now? Like, in your mind, what do you think you need to back for?
What have I got at the moment?
You have 1,600 gold.
I'm basically looking to get as much of my Trinity as I can in one back. I would like to buy my Sheen because I'm looking to one shot.
Okay.
Or even Phage for a little bit of survivability, to be honest. But I like the components of Phage alongside a Sheen.
Right. They help you survive.
Yeah, do a bit more damage and survive.
Um,
And the cooldown from Sheen.
I'm gonna bounce back to your Swifties here real quick. Because I don't hate them, right? Like, I just don't think it's correct in this game.
Yeah.
But why I want to bounce back to him is because when you go into the runing pages now with Relentless Hunter, like all that out of combat movement speed,
Yeah.
that kind of gives you Mobies, right? So in theory, you can access Moby movement speed and then still get in combat movement speed from Swifties. So I don't hate them. It's just in this regard, I think you need Merc Treads. You just end up getting these because they're convenient with the price. But I feel like that's kind of a trap in this case.
Emma would have been more ideal.
Mm-hmm. Alright, so you're clearing your jungle, and you look mid, you see a freebie. You're strong, but you also have a lot of money in your pocket here. I'm not a fan of choosing to do stuff like this when you have this much money. I think at this point, now that you see that you have this much, you want to back with 2 components because you almost have enough, right?
Yeah.
But you don't quite get it, but you know you need to back anyway. Okay. Let's back this up a second. This is really important to recognizing the state of the game and what your comp actually needs to win. Because this is a fairly even game, right? I think the gold on your team is overall in better places. Because more of it is on you. And like a Roa brain support, sure, he's gonna be strong, but I think you can work around him, right? You can choose to go somewhere he isn't because you're strong and fed. So when you look at this game and you look at the builds that they currently have, I don't think you necessarily default to a Trinity Force. What sticks out to me is that you see that the Ziggs is not building a Zhonya's. He's already 1 in 5. He's going to be squishy for basically the rest of the game, and you're on a good power curve. So I don't think you necessarily need Trinity Force to kill him. I think when you are a jungle assassin, this bounce back to that opportunity mindset where you need to be like exploiting the enemy team where they're weakest. The weakest members of their team right now, and probably for the rest of the game, are going to be Ziggs and Varus. This Varus does not have a Janna support, right? He doesn't have a Lulu support. His support doesn't even have exhaust. So when you see this, I think your build needs to shift immediately into lethality and burst. Because you know that you can either kill him or this Ziggs, no matter what, as long as you stay ahead of the curve with damage. I think Trinity Force is too expensive for this game.
Okay.
Because this guy can't get tabbies, right? Varus could still eventually get tabbies, which makes him a bit of a hard target, but Ziggs can't. and it's too late for him to start getting Zhonya's, right? You're already too far ahead of him. So rather than building in towards Trinity here, I think you see that they have two very vulnerable squishies and no peel support. So you should be itemizing into like straight assassin burst with like Dirk, Sheen, and level 11, not necessarily Trinity Force, which takes too long to finish.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So
Okay,
backing
fine.
with this much gold here, I think what you get instead is a Dirk and two longswords, and you build in towards either Yumu's or Duskblade.
Yeah, I alternate, but I'm unsure about Duskblade just because it takes so long to proc back. Kind of like.
Yeah, I think Duskblade overall is more of like a stealth assassin item, right? Like you would get that on Nocturne or Rengar.
Yeah.
But I think Yumu's is better here. I think Yumu's is even better too because it gives you out of combat movement speed. And I preach this in a lot of my lessons where having map mobility and being efficient is one of the best things that you can do in low elo. Like you go farm this, you go kill that guy, you back, and then 30 seconds later, you're already killing somebody else because you're that fast. You have Relentless Hunter, you have out of combat movement speed from Yumu's, etc. On and on and on. So what Yumu's would allow you to do, because you would probably finish it by the time you're level 11 here, your out of combat movement speed would be shooting up to like above 450 to 500 if you were to have like Mobies and Yumu's. So you could go gank this guy, base, and then go back and gank the other guy. And then what I think would happen is if you were to get really fed after that point and have Yumu's in 11, I think you build Sheen after that. The reason why I say you build Sheen after that is because the only thing that Sheen scales with really is like auto attacks and flat magic or flat armor penetration, right? Because it deals bonus physical damage. Bonus physical damage scales with armor penetration. So with sudden impact, and then you would have 20 from Yumu's. When you get a Sheen after that, you're going to be getting like an extra 100 damage because you've already leveled up a little more, increasing your base AD. And you also have more flat pen from sudden impact in Yumu's, making those auto Qs, those auto Es hurt way, way more. And you're going to be accessing that damage sooner rather than having to buy the 3,700 gold for the Trinity. I think you'll find if you get more fed, finish Yumu's first because it's cheaper and it has more AD ratios for an AD assassin, and then go into Sheen if it still feels appropriate, you're going to have way more damage versus people like this Ziggs or this Varus who doesn't have a Janna to protect him. So I definitely think your build here, focusing on Trinity, is not correct when you have such good targets in Ziggs and Varus who can be killed by Yumu's. Alright, we're going to go back to this fight. Do you have any questions before I keep going? I don't want to feel like I'm going too fast for you or anything.
No, that made perfect sense. I'm just writing it down now.
Okay.
It's just all stuff I don't really consider, but once you say it, it's just like, oh god.
Mm-hmm. I think putting it into context is the big thing.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Great punch. Okay. You see him fighting. Kate's dead, and you're like, maybe I can still do something. You loop around. You see them walking up. Okay. I think before you go in here, you need to do a head count on the rest of the map, right? You know that you're mid in your 80k, you're dead, and that you do not see Mao or Ziggs. So I think going in on this already is risky. But because you have damage, you know that you can either kill one of them or both of them and still have time to get out. So if we go to the global view, or actually no, you don't see Vlad. Their whole team's here, right? Unfortunately. So I think when you know that you already have dead teammates on your team, you need to get into the habit of doing head counts and thinking, hey, if I don't see this guy, is it possible that he shows up? And if he does, what do I do if he does? I feel like this doesn't even enter your mind here. I think you see the low health bar and low mana bar on Varus, and you just go in for the kill. That on its own is not bad, because you can kill him and still get out. What's bad is that you kill him and you greed for more.
Yeah.
You need to be happy with the fact that you kill this Varus. I think Braum baits you a little bit. Like, you see him behind you and you're like, yeah, let's go, team. But, you know, they have more team than you do because your Xerath and your Caitlyn are dead. So I think definitely if you're already a man down, get into the habit of doing like a head count and a scoreboard check to see who's alive and who could potentially show up to a fight. Because when you stay and greed for Varus, or for Brand, Braum dies also trying to help you, right?
Yes.
So you get more than just yourself killed here.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just going to watch it one more time. You're looking at the map, you see him die, so you're like, oh shit, I need to go this way. So you saw this coming, right?
I saw the Varus coming, but
you see, yeah.
I didn't see the Ziggs and the Maokai. I didn't see the Ziggs.
The Vlad. My bad. It's the Vlad. Xerath dies right here, which you could have actually, like, you would have seen that one. But I think you know that, yeah, you can get out in time. As long as you kill him and back up here, I think you're out. This ult might get you on the way out. I think that's possible. I think in general, this is just a very risky fight to go for because 2 of your teammates are dead.
Yeah, definitely. And where the Ziggs were fighting with the Xerath as well, and Vlad, kind of picking on him.
Okay, there's actually one more thing to look at before we move on to the next play. And stop. I think Dirk over Sheen here actually gives you more damage and burst because you only get off like 1 auto attack, right? So that's only 1 Sheen hit. Sheen is only giving you 90 damage here. If you were to have the extra damage from like 25 AD, 10 lethality, I think he dies before he gets away, and then you are forced to ult to follow up. So if we go real slow, we're going to see that your Q at this point in the game, maxed, it says it's doing, depending on how long you charge it, it's doing up to 340-ish, and we're going to see how much this Varus takes in health damage. Like 200-ish. And then we're going to see the Sheen damage go through, about another 200-ish. I think the moment you land this Q, rather than going for an auto attack, which is, like, that's good habit, right? Because you're trying to weave Sheen autos. But you're also, you have to because you bought Sheen, you know what I mean? If you don't do this, you're not getting your mileage. So a typical Vi combo is like you Q auto E, R auto E, right? Like that's the perfect combo where you would get off like 2 to 3 Sheen procs. But the correct play here, because you know that you need to get in and get out fast, because this Vlad's here, I think you just Q immediately into R, and then while he's stunned for 1.25 seconds, that's when you auto E him and finish him off. I think if you have Dirk and you just commit to QRing him with your like smiting smite, you know, if you just dump everything on him, I think he just dies sooner. Because you try to get a little greedy with your electrocute and not R him, and Brand saves him, right? Mm-hmm. I think if you commit to the R stun and you have Dirk, he just blows up with electrocute. Because Dirk also increases your electrocute damage, right?
Okay, yeah, of course it does.
Yeah. This is why sudden impact and buying lethality is so good, because it also increases your burst from electrocute. If you just commit with the QR, you don't have to R back in and then overstay.
Yeah, I'm not overextended with Maokai ult. Yeah, that does.
See, but then now you're already committed to the Trinity Force now, right? It's not that Trinity Force is bad. I just think that given the situation here, Trinity Force is too expensive when you could get something better, like Yumu's, and kill these guys who don't have enough ways to protect you.
Yeah.
Or to protect themselves from you. Like, you know, no peel, no armor, no Zanyas, that kind of thing. This is where lethality would just make you a boss monster. Just clap people out with electrocute. The old joke around Vi, is that when she first came out, she was really oppressive to mid laners, right? This is when people like Ziggs and Orianna and Syndra were the really popular picks. So Vi would just constantly come mid and push R on you. And back in the day when she launched, her stun had like an extra 0.25 seconds on it, on her R. And her R also did like 100 extra flat damage or something. Or it was like an extra 50 with another 0.25 seconds of stun. it sounds like a small thing, but like that's really big, right?
Yeah,
Um,
a lot.
it's a lot. Yeah, that's like a whole nother auto attack of damage and a whole nother auto attack of stun duration, which is huge. So in general, like Vi is best at punishing squishy people who do not build to respect her because she is such a like guaranteed damage delivery system, right? If you engage on someone with Q and they're a squishy without armor or an escape, rather than Q punching in, you engage with R auto and E, and then while they're stunned, because if you R auto E, you're going to reduce their armor by 20%. This is where you start getting that multiplication of having flat pen along with the fact that she has percentage in her kit. You engage with either Q auto E or R auto E. If you were to engage with R auto E and shred their armor, you still have your Q and your E left. So when you know you're up against these targets who have no way out, you take the very 100% secure way to secure your damage. Like instead of trying to layer it here, you know, you just Q first and R first.
Yeah, yeah.
Going forward, you're looking for a pick. I think ideally here, you still know that your priority target is like Varus and Ziggs.
Yeah.
But I see this a lot. It's getting later in the game, laning phase is ending, so you kind of just go mid rather than having a plan of your own here.
Yes.
Your goal here is still kill Ziggs, kill Varus, and buy your Trinity Force. Your red team. Okay, this guy is hiding under tower. You clear out the vision. If we pause right here, you go to group up with your team. You see Ziggs, who does not have flash. The rest of his team is actually quite spread out, other than Maokai, but you don't necessarily know that yet. So when you're walking through the jungle here, you know that you need to get back to your team. Okay. I actually think instead of grouping up mid here and falling into like this ARAM-y feeling that tends to happen a lot when laning phase ends, you just go bot and start split pushing.
Okay.
It sounds a little rough because like, hey, I don't want to leave my team alone mid, right? But what would happen instead is that if you start farming bot, someone else is probably going to come over here, someone more than Varus, right?
Yes.
And you see the Fiora's going top. So if she's top pushing top and you're bot pushing bottom and they send two people bottom for you, Fiora gets to push mid for free. And if there's two bot for you, then they get to 3v3 mid. So just by putting yourself onto the map with your Fiora top, you're going to spread them out and essentially make the map safer for your three teammates that are mid.
Okay.
This starts getting a little risky and like a little complicated because, you know, it's extremely unpredictable, right? You don't know what your silver and gold teammates are going to do. So what you have to do is that instead of grouping up with them and adding to the volatility of like what the fuck is about to happen now that we're all mid, you split the map out and prioritize your Trinity Force. No matter what happens mid, you're still farming, you're still scaling, you're still getting your Trinity Force here, rather than kind of joining this ARAM bronze party. Because what happens here is that when you sit mid, you become dependent on like protecting these guys, right?
Yes.
But this it's just very risky, I think. I think because you don't have your Trinity Force yet, you don't necessarily want to start fighting these team fights. You're not a tank, you don't have merc treads. This is a very risky situation for you. You see how you can't actually really do anything here because they're all grouped up. I think what happens here instead is that instead of sitting mid and getting low, you could have pushed all of this in, probably gotten enough gold to finish your Trinity Force, because this is like 3 whole waves here, potentially 4, and then Fiora gets all this top push. But instead, you choose to go mid, which draws their entire team mid, right? They see you mid, they see the 4U mid, they're like, okay, we can mid too. But this isn't what you want yet. They have a tank in the jungle, but you're not a jungle tank. You need to still be prioritizing your damage items and your map pressure. So this is why I say push bot, rather than choose to opt into the team fight. You're not quite ready for this yet. They have a team fighting comp and you don't.
Yeah, that does make sense.
So then you end up having to base. You're still trying to build your Trinity Force. You see what I mean? How much it's costing you to get sucked into this mid-fighting thing.
Yeah.
For the past, what, 8? We're going to say it stops at 850 when you're finally back on the map again. I would say from this moment, this is where you started chipping in. So for 1 minute and 40 seconds, you kind of stop getting all XP and farm and getting sucked into the ARAM mid. Whereas for the next 1 minute and 40 seconds, you could have farmed like these 3 to 4 waves and probably finished your Trinity Force. Maybe even killed Varus or gotten the tower. I think what really happens is that you just get this wave, you see Maokai and Varus bot, and then you back off, right? But because there's 2 of them bot, and Vladimir has to go stop Fiora, that means it's once again just like 2 people mid. So your teammates are in inherently less danger. You grouping up with them actually puts them in more danger.
Okay.
Because you're not a tank. Like, you can't lead the charge yet, you know what I mean? Whereas, you know who can? This guy.
Yeah.
That's exactly what this guy wants to do. He wants you to group up so that he can CC you and kill you with your squishy build. What you want to do is go farm, get your Trinity Force, and make this guy scared to death of you. But we're going to go back forward to 1850. Red buff. Yeah. You don't really want to go for Vladimir, right? He has nothing but health and armor and Zanya's. That's the exact kind of thing that you don't want to go for. That's where you just say, wow, that sucks. I hope we can do something about that late game, right?
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
He's just off the table as a target, in my opinion. That's too risky. You don't have magic resistance, and he has like 3 health and armor items. You don't go for that. You don't even have your Trinity, right? If you have like Trinity and then some magic resistance like Merc Treads, then I think this Vladimir becomes fightable. But your targets are still like Ziggs and Varus, 100%.
Okay.
So you're still trying to get Trinity. Finally got it. Red side vision. Securing vision because you're looking for picks. Hunting somebody down. Yeah, I think this bot split that you finally decide to go do, I think this is about 6 minutes too late, right?
Okay, yeah.
I think in Universe B, you don't necessarily need your Trinity Force to start something like this. I think if you have a slightly better early game with like a little less wasted time and maybe that bot gank, I think you snowball your bot lane instead, because this is like the watch the lane you're closer to thing, right? Instead of queuing onto Scuttle, you watch mid. Instead of doing Gromp, you look bot and you're more willing to react because they cross the line. So in general, I think the split push is late. You could have been a power spiked sooner with like a Yumu's build. But the big reason why this is bad is that it's already after 20 minutes.
Okay.
And they already have Baron, right? You can't really split bot after 20 after they already have Baron. In general, most split push pressure from a jungler, unless the rest of your team is strong enough to keep them from Baroning, which your team is not, you know, you basically don't go bot. Like, I don't know if you see Trick 2G, you know, he'll split push whatever lane he wants. That's because in like these higher level games, people understand that they only have to not get killed. But after 20 minutes, opting into a split push away from your team is some very risky stuff. I think this needs to happen sooner, not after 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The core of the thought is not bad, because you know you can't really team fight them and you're already going to lose things. But you also kind of half-ass it, right? Instead of continuing to go, you back instead of like getting another wave and getting another tower. When you choose to make these selfish decisions, or I don't mean selfish in a bad way. I honestly think a lot of times you need to be selfish.
I know what you mean.
You need,
Yeah.
you need to finish this push. Like, you already bothered doing it. You need to throw out the extra auto E and Q and finish it.
Okay.
Because you can't get here back fast enough to stop what's happening. So you want to go do as much as you can on your own.
Yeah, I knew we were gonna lose the inhibitor, but I was hesitant because I wasn't sure if they were.
If they would continue to push more, so you're like, hey, I'll stand here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it only would have taken like another 3 seconds to push this, and then this crashes sooner, and I think all these minions are already dead by then. So that's just like a little thing to keep in mind. If you're gonna commit to that split push, push that extra wave real quick.
Yeah.
Overall, I think this game kind of feels over-ish, in my opinion. Your team's kind of 0-10, and I have my next lesson starting soon. Rather than get into all these what could have beens, right? Because this game is already really slanted.
Yeah.
And this is where it's like, oh, they have an all damage team comp. No matter who you jump in on, they're gonna have damage left to kill you. So this is kind of like a nightmare matchup, right? You see something like this in Champ Select, and you know that if you don't get strong enough to insta kill people off the start, that you don't get to survive at all when you jump in.
Yeah.
So looking for these sooner snowball attempts, like coming bot lane when they cross the line, building merc treads, possibly getting more gold to build GA third item. I think the same way you see Jarvan's build GA third item is something you should probably consider as well. Like a Yumu's, Warrior Yumu's GA Trinity or something like that, or Warrior Trinity Steric. It's going to vary game to game. But I think if you see squishies who are not building Tabis or not building Zanyas, you need to opt into a Yumu build, in my opinion, and punish them with like your Q nuke combo with Electrocute and ult, rather than trying to weave in auto attacks.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll definitely work on doing that. Yeah, that's exactly what I need to start doing, basically.
Well, I'm glad I can help you. You have a quick question, real quick, before I end the session?
No, that was everything. Thank you. I'll definitely have to try and book another session with you in the
Awesome.
future.
I'll be available. I usually only do 2 to 3 lessons for free, depending on the person. I like teaching people who are receptive, though, and good talkers. I don't know, sometimes I get people who are shy and don't even say anything, what have you. But if there's anything I could ask for you, it's just that you throw me a review on league coaching, and if you feel like having another, I'll be in touch. Find me through Discord, find me through the site, whatever. I'm easy to reach.
Hey, perfect. Thank you, man. I definitely will do.
You're welcome. Good luck and have a good day.
And you take care. Goodbye.